Hello, and welcome to me shoving pancakes in my mouth while I talk to you about webcomics. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Webcomic Wednesday. I want to apologize right off the bat for this video coming out a little bit later in the day than they usually do, but life has been busy because we have officially entered midterm season. So this is me trying to film videos and eat food in between my classes today. The webcomic that we're here to talk about today is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman, which I feel like I say this about every comic, but is probably one of my favorite webcomics of all time. Where to read. You can read this webcomic on Tapas and Tumblr. I believe there's also a webtoons for it, but I'll double check, and as always, all those lovely links will be down in the box below. It updates on the 1st, 11th, and 21st of every month. Every month that there's like a 31st day, I always think that there's an update, and then I'm like, no, Maddie, not every month have a 31st day. That's not how this works. So the 1st, 11th, and 21st, and they're usually about 5 to 10 pages. They're like pretty decent updates that you get every chunk of the posting day. This is how this video is gonna go. She's decided that they're gonna be taking a break in March just because there's so much other stuff going on with the webcomic and the Heartstopper and everything, so there won't be any postings in March. So if you see this video and you want to read Heartstopper, use March to catch up on everything that's been happening. So this story follows Nick and Charlie. Nick is I guess rugby lad. I think that's a British term that I don't know. Nick is this outgoing rugby player at the school, and Charlie's kind of like a high-strung, I don't know if that's the right term to use. He's a very anxious teenager who's like kind of nerdy, pretty quiet, introverted. The way that she kind of describes it, I guess, is Nick is basically kind of like a dog and Charlie's a cat, I guess, might be a better way of describing this. This video is already a mess, but this story essentially follows them as they become friends, and then their friendship and relationship develops more from there. I think the way that she describes it is like boy meets boy, and then it's like what happens from there. It's a very sweet comic, and basically where these characters came from was they were mentioned as like secondary characters in her first novel, Solitaire, which is about Charlie's older sister, Tori. And then since then, they also appear in This Winter, which takes place between the 5th and 6th chapters of Heartstopper, that's a novella, and then Nick and Charlie, which takes place after the comic has ended. But we're not there yet in the comic. And you don't have to have read any of those in order to be able to understand what's going on. It just like kind of gives you a little bit more context to the universe and some of the characters and things that cross over between the different books. So we have Nick, who is this rugby star. He's basically a giant teddy bear. I feel like I described one of the characters as that last video, but he's very outgoing, but he's also very kind and soft and sweet. And at the beginning of the comic, Nick thinks that he is straight, and essentially it's him kind of going on this journey of learning to understand his own sexuality and his own feelings and his feelings towards Charlie as their relationship develops, and then later in the comic learning how to support Charlie. So that's kind of Nick. I'm trying to think of, he's just lovely. Charlie I relate to a lot because he's so introverted and shy. He's a musician as well, and he's also very self-deprecating in the way that he thinks about himself. He doesn't think that he has a chance with Nick or that they kind of deserve to be together. One of my favorite things is the way that they complement each other in that way, that they're like both kind of oblivious idiots. One of the lines that comes up a lot in the comics is they'll say something and then realize like, duh, that's the most obvious thing in the world, and they'll be like, oh my god, why are we like this? Which is something that I really appreciate and I find really funny. And besides that, there is all of Charlie's friends. So there's Teo and Elle, and then Darcy and Tara, and Darcy and Tara are dating, and Elle is also a trans female character within the comic. And then there's some other secondary characters that become a part of it as well. One of my favorite kind of connections of characters that's going to become more prevalent as the comic goes on is two of the teachers who end up developing a relationship with each other, and I get very excited every time they show up in the comic. But I can't forget the most important characters of all, which are Nick's dogs. Nick's dog, Nellie, really reminds me of my dog, which makes me really sad because I just lost my dog, but she's basically like a big fluffy, I don't think she's actually a Sheltie, but she's some sort of sheepdog, and she's adorable, and I love her. And then later in the comic, this is a little spoiler, Nick gets a pug who is adorable, and we love them all. And one of the exciting things is that the show has just been greenlit for a Netflix series, and we'll get to see the real dogs. It's very funny because everyone on Tumblr is like, forget who they're casting to play the characters. Who are they casting to play the dogs? So that's characters. So the plot, yes. So they meet at high school, and Nick is actually a year older than Charlie, but they have the same like homeroom class. I've read so many British novels and I still don't understand how the British education system works. But essentially they get seated next to each other in their homeroom class. Nick really encourages Charlie to come and play on the rugby team after he sees how fast he is, and then their friendship ends up developing from there. So I would kind of like describe the different arcs that happen as like, the first arc is like them meeting each other, them kind of becoming friends and building their friendship. Then from there it's kind of a journey of Nick's sexuality and him kind of coming to terms with himself, and then their relationship building from there, and kind of where the story ends up leading into is dealing with Charlie's mental illness, and Charlie struggles with an eating disorder, and being able to not move beyond that, but learning how to support someone as their significant other or their friend as they're struggling with a mental illness like that, in order to be able to help them get into recovery and learn how to treat and live with that illness on a daily basis. With that in mind, I do want to do the kind of trigger content warnings for this comic. Early in the comic there is I would kind of call him an emotionally manipulative person that Charlie is in a not relationship with, and as a result of that there is an unconsensual kiss that ends up happening. There is some homophobic language, mention of self-harm, and then of course discussions around mental illness, sexuality, eating disorders. That was a weird order to put those in. Alice does an amazing job of putting content warnings on pretty much anything that she thinks could be triggering, which I really appreciate. Some people comment on the things and they're like, why was there a content warning on this? I thought it was going to be something terrible. But honestly, as someone who can be impacted by some of those things that get covered by content warnings, it's really nice to know what's coming up before it comes up. So just keep that in mind, that if you do choose to read it, she will give you more than enough heads up to prepare yourself for those moments in the comics. Alright, what I love about this comic, why you should read it. Let's do that next. I can't describe to you how perfect Nick and Charlie's relationship is. I genuinely don't think I've read anything with a healthier relationship. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Their relationship is like by no stretch perfect, and they're learning how to be in a relationship and be themselves and be open with one another. But the thing is the like communication that happens and the amount of like respect and understanding that happens. Nick is not out at the beginning, and the way that Charlie navigates those understandings and supports him while still trying to like take care of himself is really, really well done. And the ways that they learn when to give each other space and how to lean on their friends is just, it's gorgeous. I can't describe to you, like, this relationship is so healthy. It's like carrots? I don't know. Something really healthy. This is the level that we're at. But yes, it's a really sweet relationship, and that's something that really pulls me through. The characters as well is something that I really appreciate, as well as the candid and open conversations about mental illness. I really appreciate that Alice doesn't shy away from anything in this comic, but she also addresses it with a really well-researched and understood air. She's not using it to sensationalize the fiction in any way or make it like sick lit, which tends to be a thing in YA works, but she definitely takes the time and effort to make sure that she's addressing it with the care and the concern that it needs. I just realized I didn't mention Nick's mom in the characters, and she deserves a shout out because she wins Parent of the Year, which I appreciate, because Alice Oseman's books also include one of the worst parents ever. So if you've ever read Radio Silence, you know what I'm talking about. Why you should read this comic. You should read this comic because dogs. Cute dogs. Definitely, that's one reason that you should read it. Alice Oseman's writing is beautiful. She has a way to articulate feelings that I didn't know that I had inside of myself. Something else that she does that I really love is the flower leaf metaphors that go on throughout the comics. So there's very much this idea that as their relationship blooms, these kind of like flower petals and flowers show up, and as the characters get overwhelmed, the actual like cells of the comics, the barriers of them will like shift and kind of be like overtaken by these flowers and these different emotions and everything, which is gorgeous. And then there's also this sense of like falling, like when the characters are going through really difficult emotional things, you'll see these kind of like leaves falling, or it could be them falling in love. And I really appreciate picking up on those little things that she takes the time to add to the comic. It's also a very diverse comic. She makes sure to include a lot of different people of various backgrounds, and one of the things that I love about Alice Oseman is she's very open with the research that she does and taking critiques and understanding where that background comes from. So like for example, in earlier drawings, Charlie's skin is a lot more tan, and she kind of left his ethnicity kind of open, and then she kind of realized how detrimental that was, so she's made it very clear that like Charlie is white, but he has Spanish heritage, and because of that he just has more tan skin. And it's something that's good that authors are like willing to take critique from people within those communities in order to be able to adapt their stories and make it better. Yeah, I think I'm gonna stop rambling about this now because I don't know if any of this video is coherent. If there are concerns with it, please let me know and I can film a new one. I just wanted to try and get something out to you, and Heartstopper is like kind of one of my comfort rereads that I go back to, so I was like, I can talk about this without any prep, it'll be fine. And here we are. Okay, we're gonna stop this video here. I'm hoping to... Today is a little bit crazy. My tomorrow is a lot more chill, same with my Friday, so I should be able to film another video just on a bookish topic that I have a couple in mind that I wanted to get out to you guys. So hopefully there'll be another video coming your way Saturday, Sunday. Otherwise, I will see you all next Wednesday for a much more prepared video of Webcomic Wednesdays. Again, if there's any webcomics you think that I should check out, please leave me a comment down below. Otherwise, I'd love to hear how you're enjoying the series or any thoughts or additions you have.